I'm going to make a little drawing after a portrait by Gustave Courbet, 19th century French artist. And immediately I start with some tonal values to define the eye socket of the man. And I'm using some hatchings. The other eye socket, a little bit of the outline of his face. So I usually start with an eye, the eye on the right. I think that's where I usually start. And then gradually the other eye, and then the nose, positioning, and slowly most of the face gets put on the paper. And this is a man with a beard, so that's interesting. And I find it interesting when you look at the painting that there is really sort of clair-obscur. You have this white color, his face, and a dark background. And I wanted this drawing to reflect that. I wanted this drawing to have a more or less painterly approach. So I tried to get that light and dark as well in this drawing. Some more of the beard. And this is rough sketching. But I think that in all of the drawing, until the end, more or less, I keep adding these kind of hatchings and scribblings. The hair. I really wanted to have this drawing some sort of finished appearance in that respect, that I wanted to have a sort of painterly effect to this. But if I would have stopped here, it would have been a nice sketch, I think, if I added a little bit of that color. But there's still a lot to go. I don't think I won't be talking all the time. I'll add a little bit of music, but I try to give some comments, adding more of the beard and the rough direction of that color. Later on, I corrected that color. I made it too big in size, I think. I was a bit enthusiastic, too enthusiastic. And with all those darks, I think I use very strong paper, so this is sort of color copy paper. I think it's 200 or 300 grams even. And this paper has a certain coating, so it's very strong. If I would have done this drawing on a piece of printer paper, I think that I would have gone through the paper, I guess. So paper that is more capable of having these pencil strokes without breaking, it gives you the opportunity to add more hatchings in a sort of layered technique. And here I am adding tonal value to the face as a whole almost, except for his forehead. Now I'm doing the background. But it's very important to see what is lightest, what is slightly darker. So when you look at the face, the forehead has the lightest area, and of course the color so around his neck. So it is important to note to make a mental note of that when you make a drawing like this. And during this drawing I was a little bit struggling with the ear. I don't think I got it placed really right, but I'm not totally sure about that. Adding some accentuation for the eye. And I'm adjusting here and there. Trying to add a little detail in the nose. And as in a sort of layer technique, I add hatchings. Here the cheek gets a little bit darker, and in the forehead a little bit. But I have to be very careful there to not make it too dark. The other cheek. This painting reminds me a bit of Velázquez, actually, a 17th century painter. I'm not sure if this painting ever was bigger than this. When I look at the actual painting, it looks like a cutout of a large painting, but I'm not sure. Maybe it was a sort of sketch or something. Usually, when you look at 17th century paintings, this would be too much cropped, as if this was a cutout, as if the head needs more space. But I'm not sure about a 19th century painter. He could have made this as some sort of sketch. And now I'm slowly adding dark values in the background. Trying to get it better in the video image now. Adjusting the camera a bit so you can see better what I'm doing. So that I can see better what I'm doing. And those hatchings, they go in all directions, and sometimes they follow the form of the skin, but not always. There's a certain cross hatching going on as well, everywhere I think in the drawing. So I'm not very disciplined in that respect, or I have a different approach, let me put it that way, than certain other draftsmen. When you look at certain draftsmen from the Renaissance, they follow very tightly the forms of of the head, for example, and I like to have a certain energy in it, which I'm not saying they haven't got an energy, because their work is fantastic, but like Goldsmiths or something. But I really like those hatchings to go everywhere. Because when they go everywhere, they do not have a dominant direction, and I don't really like to have hatchings that go into one dominant direction. So I think that much of what you see is to avoid that, more or less. Here I'm adding to the background. It gives a certain atmosphere to have a background like this. But I want the background to be dark, so I'm not finished with the background yet here. Making his other cheek a little bit darker. And now I'm adjusting all kinds of areas. You can download this image of Gustave Courbet at the website of the Metropolitan Museum of Art, Met Museum. I'm not sure if it's .org or .com, but you can find out, and Gustave Courbet, then you can find this. And all of it is done with one sort of HB pencil. I actually used two at a certain moment. The tip was blunt, so I took another one, but I only use HB in general for these kind of drawings. I like a certain simplicity with that. And gradually I expanded the background more and more, so. And then it's a consideration to what extent you want let's say the drawing to follow the form of the paper, or whether it's some sort of more or less abstract form. So that's a consideration. What form do you give the background in a drawing like this? But I try to make it like a little painting in its light and dark values. So when you make a sketch, you have mainly dark lines on the white paper, and in this drawing I wanted to have a nice division of light and dark, a certain clair obscur. So then you are filling the whole of the paper to a large extent. Or the whole of the paper, or a great part of the paper. large part. My English is not perfect. A great part of the paper or a large part of the paper. Anyway. And I had this consideration about a few light accentuations in his hair. As you can see, because of the hatchings, there is a certain openness in the structure. You can draw a hatching in such a way that it's very dark and very closed, so to speak, and you can draw hatchings in which the lines are a bit from each other. And in the hairs, as a sort of side effect of hatching, there are a few small areas which are still showing the white of the paper, and I deliberately let them there because I really like the certain sense of, let's say, drawing that is breathing. If I would have taken a pencil and I would have closed those small areas, so to speak, in the hatching, so I would have made these little white areas dark as well. I feel that the drawing would not breathe as much as the end result of this process. So that's what I had in mind. That's what I tried to do. Maybe it sounds really vague, but a drawing must be lively, it must be breathing, and if things are really tightly drawn, then it can be a bit suffocating in a certain way. I try to explain it, but maybe it sounds really vague as I say it, but it gives a certain transparency to keep certain things open in that respect, and I like that. And I relate it to breathing. So, and here I'm adjusting the color. I made it a little bit too large, I think. I'm looking at this now as I'm speaking afterwards, so trying to see what I did good or bad. What I did wrong perhaps, but it's also a sketch, so too much perfectionism can stand in the way of a certain spontaneity in sketches like these. And I'm working towards finishing now. One has to stop somewhere. And this is it. Thank you for your attention. Please like and subscribe if you like this, or comment. Thank you.